Okay, so I heard you're back up.
Yeah, he'll start the meeting. We have to do roll call and a couple things.
There it is. Okay. Heidi, are you ready?
Yep.
Della?
Yes. Yes.
Lois? Cheryl?
Yep.
All right. And we'll call this meeting to order at 8:05. Roll call when ready, please. 9:05, excuse me. Yep, 9:05.
Beck? Here. Goss, here, Pop?
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Any changes to the agenda this morning? Any conflicts of
Well,
interest?
hold on a second. I was just about to comment. We haven't heard anything. At least I haven't heard anything from either Mr. Maher or Mr. Patterson about the second agenda item. So I just, I don't know if, as far as I know, we have no information to take any action on that agenda item.
So when we get to agenda item 2, I guess we'll determine something.
Sure.
Any conflict of interest? Any public comment? How about from anyone here in the township hall? So I will visit Zoom land. And good morning, Brian. Any public comment this morning?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Brian Kelly, Acme Township resident. And I see water system is on your agenda for today. And I just wanted to mention some things we had done in Acme with public water. And I mentioned this before, I believe. We've done 2 public water feasibility surveys, one a few years ago. And more recently this summer, our township engineer, Gosling Zubik, conducted an extensive engineering and financial analysis. We looked at 3 different sources of public water that we have available potentially and different routing. The focus was only on providing water to key commercial areas, not residential. Costs of the 3 system alternatives ranged from $4.3 to $8.1 million. And it was not feasible. In 2021, Gosling Zubik completed a water rate survey in 47 Michigan communities. And I'm quoting the report here. The calculated Acme water rates exceed the average by more than double. And on the high end are nearly double the highest surveyed community. And I'm quoting, it is not recommended to construct the complete water system with the current customer base. And that is commercial base here. This isn't even residential. The cost to the current customers is higher than what would be considered acceptable. So obviously, that's one of the challenges of being a small community and trying to figure out public water and how expensive it is to operate it and treat it. And it's not easy. Also wanted to mention a study from West Virginia College of Law in January 2019. And I quote, extension of water lines into rural or suburban areas, say local governments, promotes economic development. The evidence fails to support this contention. To the contrary, extension of water lines often promotes sprawl and strip development along the lines by making development possible in previously rural areas. And one of the other things that happens with these types of water system rollouts is sometimes you rely on developers to pay to extend out spur lines and things. So you may say, well, let's put water in this one place and it can still sprawl. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Don Glenn, good morning. Any public comment this morning?
Good morning, everyone. No, I have no public comments at this time.
Thank you. Good morning, Dee Pelt. Any public comment this morning?
No, no public comments. Thank you.
Good morning, Denise. All right. Then that brings us to our first business item, water infrastructure needs working session. Good morning, gentlemen. We can move that to a different spot, you know. Perfect.
Thank you, everybody. We've all met before. I was here just December, but this is our stakeholder meeting for the Whitewater Township Water Infrastructure Needs Study and also the Building / Facility Assessment and Needs Study. So my name is Eric Kronk. Like I said, we've all met. I'm the project manager for this for C2AE. Last time I was here, I brought Larry Fox, who you guys have met. Since that time, he's retired and he's now down in Florida. So who I have with me today is Kevin McCurowitz. He's our senior design engineer and a professional engineer out of our Gaylord office, and has done extensive design and studies of other municipal water systems. So he's here today to help with the discussion. I put together this agenda for some of the main topics that we wanted to discuss as a group.
Eric,
Yes.
apparently some folks in Zoom land can't hear you, so if you could speak up to the microphone here. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Just was saying, I have Kevin McCurowitz with me today. He's our senior design engineer, and he's going to help with the discussion for the topics that we have put on our agenda. This is just meant to be kind of information gathering, early high-level exploration of some of the options and needs of the township. So we figured this first part will be about an hour of discussion. The second part of our agenda is the building needs. And we have our architect who's not here yet. He's going to be joining us closer to the 10:30 timeframe. And we're going to be doing the breakout interviews with each stakeholder to discuss what needs you guys have for this building and the fire station. And then we had a fire station tour after the interviews are done, which Dennis Jensen, who's our architect, will likely be attending that. So without further ado, the first thing we wanted to talk about was the study area. That's why I brought the map. I kind of wanted to, I guess, define the areas that you guys were looking at or wanting to explore, potentially adding, municipal water. So can we define the limits, I guess, of what areas you guys are thinking about or looking at to start?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So where,
This has been kind of a multi-year, I won't call it a discussion, but it's been a multi-year conversation piece. And it started with getting fire protection water south of M72. Okay, so you've got M72 located there on the map. I think originally we would have liked to get fire protection water in 3 different spots along M72. In the Moore Road intersection, which would be right there. Yep. We would like to get it in the Vinton Road intersection. And then potentially at Cook/Broomhead. So Broomhead Road. If you continue east another mile, right there. So when the discussion first started, there was no development at that last intersection. But since that time, there's at least one development that has sparked some renewed interest, and there's lots of property there for sale now. And so then the second wish list was to have potable water along the Vinton Road corridor. This particular building has a well that really is not drinkable condition. Could it have some work done to it? Could it be conditioned differently to make it drinkable? Probably. But the Vinton Road corridor also has a known issue with all of its septic tanks. And of course, just west of Vinton Road runs our Williamsburg Creek, which is a designated trout stream. So water quality is a real question. I learned last year in 2021 that there were tests done on Williamsburg Creek. For the first time, E. coli was recorded in the creek. We don't know whether it was animal or whether it was human. So no PCR conclusion test had been completed on. But I understand that that was a new development for 2021. So sewer then also becomes a question in the Vinton Road corridor.
Are you including Church Street in the Vinton Road corridor?
Yeah, so that's a great point, Ardella. The Vinton Road corridor would also go over to Williamsburg Road, which would be just one block back west. Yep, that's Church. And then Williamsburg would be one block west. And so
Church connects Vinton and Williamsburg.
right, yep. And so just to be clear, the corridor is both sides of the creek because we have development on both sides of the creek right here in, the first, we'll say 1,500 feet. Is that kind of right, Ardella?
Mm-hmm.
So that, yep.
So you mentioned that E. coli was found this past summer in Williamsburg Creek. Are you aware of failing septic systems
Come on up.
specifically?
We know of people who have reported difficulty selling their properties because they were on holding tanks that had to be pumped on a regular basis. Now, am I aware of how many holding tanks versus septics we have? No.
And there's a lot of flooding issues on Church Street, those properties, both sides of the road.
Because of the creek. Because of the creek.
Probably in the pond also, had something to do with the mill, that dam not releasing enough water from the pond.
So our study is not specific to include sanitary sewer or septics, of course. However, it should be considered as we're determining what water study area you want to potentially serve.
And the one thing that is kind of a pet peeve of mine personally is we go through and we put in electric, and then we put in cable, and then we follow it up with natural gas, and then can't we just do it all with one dig? If we plan correctly. And so I think that's why it deserves mention, is I'd much rather dig one trench and throw a bunch of pipes in it.
It's not that easy, though.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
If it was that easy, everyone would do it that way.
Right. With the natural gas, cable, electric, they do not have to follow separation requirements as sanitary sewer and water main have to conform to a minimum 10-foot separation. So,
I thought we were now using concentric pipes.
well, we cannot, well, directionally drilling is becoming more prevalent. It's easier to do with water main, of course, because grade on gravity sanitary sewer is difficult to achieve
Right.
with a directionally drilled pipe.
Is this microphone?
Yeah.
Can be.
Can be. While we're on that, I'm gonna recommend that everybody get their microphones right up because everybody seems to be talking very quietly today.
Okay, so again, for this first topic or agenda, I wanted to define the boundary. So it sounds like,
More road.
yep, which is
Mhm.
here.
Yep.
So this would be the eastern limit or the western limit?
That'd be the
excuse me?
western limit.
Okay, and then how far south on Moore? Or would we just be looking to have the fire protection
So
on M72?
that's a great question. How far south? So originally the conversation was, we were concerned about stagnant water, right? Not getting any type of use out of it and what kind of issues would that cause? Since that time, the industrial park, which is located on Moore Road there, has developed to the point where they need 1,300 GPM a minute at 100 PSI for a new building construction that they are currently underway. So I don't think we have a use problem there. And so to answer your question specifically, again, probably 1,000 to 1,500 feet would incorporate all of that development.
So our
Sound
western
right,
limit
Chief?
will be probably the west side of Moore Road, down south, 1,500 feet,
Mhm.
and then heading east all the way.
1,000 to 1,500 feet off M72, are we saying? Where does the,
So that's a great question, Cheryl. So I think just to back up a little bit, there is tribal water along old M72, right?
Nope, it goes to the school.
Yep, goes to the school. And so I would really like to look towards them to help us with this beginning phase. Because I think public comment brought up the cost of getting our well fields in and towers and all of that is probably going to put this out of reach for us potentially. But if we could tap into something existing, back to Cheryl's question, I think it's 1,500 feet south of old M72.
Okay, and then 1,500 feet south, of Old 72, Moore Road is the western boundary, and then heading east, we're going past Williamsburg Road, continuing over to, what's the name of that road again?
Vinton.
And that's where we're at.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the eastern boundary would be,
Yeah, and that one is really questionable, right? And I would certainly love to have some board comment on this. Development in Whitewater Township has lagged. And so do we plan 20 years in the future, thinking we might have more development here than what we have in the last 20? Question mark.
My thought on this is if you plan it before it starts to happen, that's the best course. And currently, I don't think we have a plan. Just what's there is what's happening. We don't have a design or a master plan, so to speak, of where we want growth to be, where we want our commercial district to actually go. Do we want to expand our industrial? If we do, where would we like to zone that at? Because currently on Moore Road, there's not enough room to actually have an industrial park. That was our old industrial park. Or industrial park one, we'll put it that way.
Sure. as public comment brought up this morning, though, every foot that we travel east towards, we'll say Broomhead / Cook Road, that adds immense cost and very few current users.
Well, for any big development, I'm having trouble. I'm trying to look at you and speak into this
sure.
thing. Any big development, do they not plan for infrastructure cost also, such as sewer and water and electrical needs? Do they not do that?
Not always.
They try.
Okay.
And bottom line, someone has to pay for it, or it needs to be paid somehow. The more users you have, potential users, to spread out your costs, the more affordable the project becomes. But if you have very few customers or residents along a specific potential proper or potential project, then it's very difficult to fund.
So like in Acme, when they put the sewer line in, up to 10 years after they put the sewer line in, anybody that added to new buildings, what have you, they had to pay a fee to tap into it. So that's helping with the cost of it, correct?
Yes, and that is a typical solution for, future development.
Yeah, sure.
Well, the question was, where's the eastern boundary, or where should the eastern boundary be? And certainly with our commercial district going to the Cook Broomhead Road thing, it certainly needs to go at least that far.
Okay.
Which is this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's all commercial on the highway, both sides of the highway, right there. And there's a bunch of vacant land there that we don't know what might come in.
And just for my knowledge, can you point out Mill Creek School on Old M72? Yes.
There.
Yeah.
Yep. And so the water main that we would like to have access to terminates right there.
Right.
And hydrant infrastructure is there according to NFPA standards. So, there's kind of some infrastructure pretty close to us if we can get approvals.
Were you guys considering further north in the school in Old M72? Any further north this way, or would that kind of be the northern boundary to close the loop?
Yeah, Chief and I didn't have really any fire protection concerns northward because of the existing water main already and access to hydrants. The original conversation started just because we would have to close down M72 or at least cross it multiple times to truck water. Why we thought getting water south of M72 would be a good idea. Sound right, Chief?
Yep. And you don't mind me coming
Yeah,
up there.
come on up.
One of our original plans was to take a spur off the existing line on Old M72 and come down to Grand Traverse Plastics, which is these three buildings. And then it kind of snowballed to, we like that spur idea. And then it snowballed into having hydrants along the south side of M72 to Broomhead, right? With a loop in the old Williamsburg district here. That's kind of where we ended up with our talks.
And just to add a little bit to that, Chief, stay right there. The second loop that had been kind of talked about actually came down to Crisp Road.
Yes.
Because we didn't want to have the original Moore Road dead end and have use issues. But since the use has potentially grown, both in domestic and fire protection, right? We think we can keep enough domestic water flowing to where we can terminate at the 1,500-foot mark.
And approximately where is the 1,500-foot mark? Moore Road?
We're thinking the paved portion of Moore Road is about 1,500 feet.
So just before Christmas.
So just before Christmas. Yeah.
So then the northern boundary is old M72. I think that's what I heard.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on the study area, or is that? I think we kind of closed the whole loop there. We got it defined. Okay, good.
Are you happy with that, board?
I am.
Okay.
Okay. Our next item we wanted to talk about was the supply options. I understand there's, we were thinking potentially 3 options. We don't, have any cost developed yet, or this is
Sure.
just very preliminary. So these are just ideas. So obviously, a new well field would be one option. We would need to determine property that's owned by the township that is large enough to support the wells and the isolation distances and that type of thing. So that could be one option. As you already mentioned, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Just in addition to that, I also understand that you would need 2 wells if you develop your own well field. Eagle requires your original well plus a backup, just for redundancy.
Okay.
So we would need to identify either a currently owned township piece of property or identify potential properties large enough that you may be able to purchase to support the 2 wells and preferably all the necessary isolation distances.
And so just a 100,000-foot view of what you just said. So are we talking a 4-inch well like we have at our house, or are we talking a 10-inch well?
10-inch
Okay.
plus or minus.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be a large municipal well, not small for residential.
And then
Flow.
isolation distances on a 10-inch well, are we talking 100 feet or 1,000 feet?
It would vary. It does vary. It could start at 200 feet from certain potential hazardous materials or up to 2,000 feet or more. There's a whole list of isolation distances. So we're talking anywhere from 200 to 2,000 feet isolation.
Does the township own any property in the study area that would be potential locations for well fields?
We have some south just on Vinton Road, but that is likely not suitable. It was the location of our original dump.
Alrighty. We do have the property on Elk Lake and Cram.
Yeah.
And so just outside of our area, if we take a look at Elk Lake Road, so find the intersection of Williamsburg and now travel north and south just a little, right there. So we have the 10-acre
Just that,
piece
right here.
right there. However,
We do have parkland too.
that is directly adjacent to a railroad grade.
You mentioned parkland. You have some parks or
Yes, on the
future parks.
corner of Elk Lake and Old M72. We have parkland in there.
Yep, right there.
How big that parcel is?
about 7 acres. And it's a kind of a rectangle.
Yeah.
As you can see there.
That rectangle,
Yeah.
no.
North and south
No,
rectangle.
It's
east and
more
west
east and
rectangle.
west.
East and
Yeah.
west rectangle.
There you
Uh,
It's not
nor-
right on the corner. There's some development here, but this is the entrance, the parking lot, and then it goes this way, and then these are the tennis courts here, so it comes over to,
And it
actually
goes
comes
back.
over to Old M72, but the entrance, and actually we have an entrance off of Old M72,
But
but
it's
the
a
main
walk
entrance is
entrance.
off of Elk Lake Road.
Go ahead, David.
So again, just kind of reviewing potential water supply options. Develop your own well field, as we're talking. Tap into or use with an agreement the existing water service going out to the school from the
Tribal.
tribal area. Or we could also look at some sort of agreement with maybe Acme Township to the west
Mhm.
and combine resources. Or then the other option would be to do nothing and Grand Traverse Plastics or other potential developers would have to develop their water, provide their water on their own.
Right. And currently, that's how they're proceeding with their construction. But would certainly love to have, municipal
Municipal.
water available to them. And then that would also help fill up what's left of the industrial park there. And there's nothing saying, Ardella, that we couldn't make industrial on the west side of Moore Road, which is now residential.
Mhm.
And some commercial.
Yeah, that's right. There is one commercial piece there already on the west side.
Well, I think Savages is commercial and the old four-wheel drive shop is commercial, I think, aren't they? Well,
Mhm.
there's 2 parcels there.
Yep.
So there was some previous discussion about future planning or future zoning changes that may be necessary. Going into the next bullet point, thank you. In terms of part of our work will be to estimate population projections for typically a 5-year period and a 20-year period as defined by Eagle when we typically do water studies. What has your growth? It sounded like maybe not that much growth in the last 20-year period, but please confirm that. Has your population increased here in the township?
Significantly. I think we have added 12 voters to the list. Is that kind of right?
Oh, way more than that.
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
Say we've added a couple hundred.
So not a bunch, to be honest with you, right? 200 voters is probably, could be 100 households, right?
Well, just remember that that's voting age people and there's other people, that doesn't count children. So. And we've been
Or people
trying
that
to
don't
get
vote.
the official Census Bureau estimate, the official Census Bureau figures. I just got a email from a contact at Networks Northwest this week. They are as frustrated as everybody else because the Census Bureau has not released the you can find 2019 estimates out there. The 2019 estimate has us at 28, I think 2799, so 2,800 people. But we haven't gotten the, they're not.
The
available,
official, right.
the Official.
Up from about 2,500.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
26 at the 2000 census, no, 2010
2010.
census, yeah.
So as you mentioned before, future land use or your ideal service area would be, well, one of them would be the potential commercial along the south side of M72. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about?
In addition to that, if we take a look at old M72, right there. So both north and south of that would also have some potential commercial, if not higher density residential, especially right around the school. But that's going to depend a lot on how the master plan rewrite comes out
So that master plan is being rewritten as we,
speak.
okay.
Yep. And so the other potential that I see for development is along the Vinton Road corridor.
Let's see.
Yeah, right there. Yep. And so it would be south of M72 and to the east side of Vinton Road. So there's a couple of large tracts of land in there that could potentially have housing. And if I remember correctly, as of about a year and a half ago, we had about 250 customers between the Moore Road, Sprague, and the water loop from Williamsburg to Church back to M72. There's about 250 people, potential customers in that loop.
Okay, so people or 250 paying customers?
250 paying parcels.
Parcels, very good.
Parcels, yep.
So you had referred to the Williamsburg is
Corridor.
is that this
Yes, it
rectangle
is.
right here?
Okay. And just for those people who are listening and not actually visualizing, the area we're talking about is east of Williamsburg Road with a south line of about Church Street, with an east line of about Vinton, and a north line of about Old M72. That's kind of the box that we're making there. Yep, absolutely.
Now, as in addition to well supply or water supply, your distribution system, potential service area that we're talking about here, there are also the third component is water storage. So as part of a water system, you would have to provide some sort of storage, whether it be ground storage, if you have topography changes where maybe you'd have an area that sits much higher than the other portion of your service area, you could use a ground storage tank, or the other option, you would have to use or have to construct an elevated water storage tank, which we have here. So if you would be supplying your water on your own, you would own the well field. We would also have to determine the amount of storage required based on fire flows and existing, or say original potential customers, and then also future potential customers. So that would drive the size of the storage that would be needed. I'm not really familiar with the topography here in this area, but knowing that the tribal area has its own elevated tank, if you go on your own, so to speak, I would expect the same. And there is a new elevated tank in Mackinac City that is currently under construction that we designed. Just to give you an idea of costs for a 150,000 gallon elevated storage tank, it was about $1.2 million just for the storage tank itself. That does not include water distribution lines, not
Not
the wells, anything, just the tank.
So to give you an idea of our topography here, an oversimplification would be, we live in a valley. You are currently standing in the low part of that valley, okay?
Mhm.
And so one of the brims of the valley would be the tribal water tower, okay? So that would be our west brim. And in my opinion, our east brim is just a little off of that picture over at Skeegamog Point Road. And so you're in a valley right here. It makes good sense to me to put the elevated structure or in-ground tank at your highest elevation and then let gravity do what gravity does.
Right.
And so that might be an argument for expanding a little bit eastward towards Skeegamog Point Road to gain some elevation for a water tank. But on the other hand, that same argument and cost could link Acme and Whitewater and have a whole bunch of customers, commercial and otherwise, between Williamsburg and our neighbor 6 miles away, Acme, which I think would be money better spent
And going east.
than going east.
Because
Yeah.
there's nobody to help you on the east side.
And I don't have a crystal ball to tell me how the township's going to develop, but I would think developers are going to probably concentrate where utilities are most available. And that's going to be gas, fiber, electric, water, sewer.
And of course, we don't want sprawl. So my opinion would be, let's not concentrate to the east.
Sure.
Definitely concentrate something to the west.
And I think that makes the most sense. Board, what do you think?
Well, there's really kind of two valleys, because over by the casino, you start coming down the hill as you're going east. And then you're really kind of going back up a hill as you get a more gentle hill, as you get to Broomhead Road. And then as you continue further east on Broomhead Road, as you'll see when you leave, and I'm sure you've traveled that road many times, you head back down into a valley again. And so Broomhead is a bit of a higher point in there, because I don't think we want to have the expense of, it doesn't make any sense economically to do something all the way as far east as Skeegamog Point Road.
Correct.
But there
So-
is free flowing water right there, you know.
Where's that?
There's an 8-inch artesian at the storage facility.
Yeah.
Been there for 100 years. Been there since time.
And that's near Skeegamore Road.
It is,
Oh.
yeah. Matter of fact, on your map there, it would be just about where old M72 connects back into new 70. Yep, right there. About 200 feet to the east, right there, yep, would be the storage facility. And so there's a free flowing 8-inch well there.
Is it right off on Watson?
Yeah, and that's pretty much old M72 where the original Watson came in. Yeah.
'Cause I think I know what you're talking about.
When you say storage, what do you mean storage?
We have a commercial use there and it is like storage house.
Oh, okay.
Facility where you can take your boat there and
Got it.
store it. Mhm.
It's not our storage facility.
Yeah, it's not, unfortunately,
Yeah.
we don't own it. It was
Yeah.
just sold, but we don't own it.
Okay, in addition to storage, then the other thing to consider what types of treatment may be necessary for your water well field? Typically chlorine and fluoride, but we have not researched your other water quality well logs in the area to see what issues there might be. We would try to get information about the tribal wells and what, if any, additional treatment they may have to do.
Mhm. And so the Brendwell property, which we call AIS, they're a constraint. Yep, right there. Mhm. They have a 10-inch fire protection well there that has, I think, some chemical data analysis on it. I've had 6 or 7 wells here in the township. All have calcium. Our nickname is Bubbling Springs. And so there's a lot of dissolved rock. I also have 2 wells that have huge iron content in it. And it seems to be as sporadic as, our geology of the area, which is
Yeah.
pretty complex.
And I think it has to do too with the depth of your well. If you've got a deep well, you got better water.
So at the very least, to answer your question, I don't know of too many municipalities that treat for hardness, but there are some iron extraction facilities, I guess, within the municipality. I didn't say that right. I'm sorry.
So Kevin, what do you think our best bet is to try and determine what the water quality is? Well logs from
Existing well logs from the tribe, well log from the AIS property, and to look online. Eagle has well logic. Try to gain that information from Eagle websites.
Mhm. Sure.
I don't know if it enters into it at all, but this area had a big gas blowout back in, what was it, the 70s or something like that. And there was M72 developed some big holes in it, and this building was damaged on the north side, and there was a lot of problems with
Yeah, Benton Road got
that
hit hard with that.
type of underground gas that blew
Just-
up or something. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but
And to build on that, wells in this corridor that we're talking about, Vinton to Williamsburg, most of the wells in this corridor for a half a mile south and a mile north had to be replaced, including this building. They had to.
After that 1970s gas explosion.
About 1974.
Yeah,
And-
I think 74 was that.
Yeah, one production company was drilling a well. In those days, you only had to put down so many feet of casing, then you could use Mother Earth as the casing. And apparently whatever they hit was enough pressure to allow the gas outside of the natural casing and release it into the rock formation that we're known for.
So that was the cause.
That was the cause. And the elephant in the room here is the next line of questioning you'd like to move into is facilities. This building is for sure not going to serve us well in the next 5 years, let alone the next 15. I don't see an addition to the building as a viable option. So thinking about the next question of facilities, I would think we would want to have water / potential sewer to that facility. Is there a spot in our current area of interest for water and sewer that the board thinks a new town hall / fire station might be reasonable?
Well, part of future planning should include that question. And I have always read and learned through MTA conferences and MAP conferences that if you're going to build a new fire station and township hall, they're good to be built together, but you, especially if you're trying to revitalize the downtown area or build a downtown area or commercial area, those are good anchor stores, so to speak. They're a grounding store, they're a grounding facility, and then things build up around it. And like you said, if you're adding the water infrastructure and the other infrastructures, you need to build those facilities. You're also providing it for future growth to expand from there. So I think it has to do with where do we want to go? Are we going to do any studies on this?
Well, I think that's kind of the next
where do
question
the-
they're going to
Right,
ask.
and where do the people see it going? Are we going to have some plans for the people to look at if we decide we can't use this building, we can't expand on this building, and we want to do a combination? Where do we go? Are we buying property? Are we using what we already have? I mean, you've got a lot of good commercial property down here that's been cleared and is open for sale. You know,
And along that line, I just have a pet peeve that Beta sits on the corner of Cass and South Airport, a non-tax paying entity consuming 3 or 4 acres of high capacity, high density, high generating.
before that, it was a Greyhound Greyhound station. That's where Greyhound came in and out of. And they took that facility over and expanded it.
And off the tax roll.
Well, I don't think they'll stay there.
No, they're already moving.
Right.
So
I guess I'm a little confused. Are we done with the water infrastructure? I think the facility thing is the building needs interviews.
That's coming
are
up.
Later
Yeah.
and individually. So I'm wondering, are you guys done with what you want to?
I was just gonna say the same thing.
Information.
I would like to wrap up our first part of the agenda on the
Could I-
water infrastructure. I think if we can definitely talk more. We touched on most of the stuff we had listed.
Mhm.
And
I
then-
do have just one
Sure,
question.
absolutely.
You gave us an example of what an elevated tank at 150,000 gallons would be, what you're
Correct.
currently working on. And the other option is an in-ground tank, is that correct?
That could be if you have,
The elevation
right,
situation.
I don't think
Any idea
that would,
what- That's not gonna work for us?
no, not an
Okay.
in-ground
So
tank.
don't even bother.
No, in-ground tank. I just designed a 300,000 gallon tank for the city of East Jordan, 2019. That was, again, 300,000 gallons of storage in ground, no additional distribution piping required. That was, I believe, about 1.1 million in ground cast in place concrete
So
on
it's
top of a hill.
double
Double.
the amount of water.
Double
for
the
same
amount of
price.
water for approximately the same price.
Board zoning administrator Hall had a couple of comments or questions.
Could I address the board for just a few minutes while you're in
Please.
this session here?
Please.
First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. I just want to make a couple quick comments. I don't know whether you've been reading my emails or tapping my phone line or getting inside my head some other way. But I have the fortune and the privilege to be here just about every Thursday throughout the year. I have the ability to converse with Cheryl and Ron quite often. I don't see the trustees as often as I'd like to sometimes, but and I think they're where the communication is. I'm always talking to them about off the wall stuff, the amount of phone calls I get, the inquiries that come in that are focused on your study area here, the M72 corridor, and your commercial area that stretches from here to here, that covers about half the width of your township along M72. So I would encourage everyone to make sure that the planning commission is on board too, because we are engaging in a 5-year review of the master plan. I think everyone in the township recognizes that the master plan is absent some critical materials needed to support moving forward in the planning process. And as an old Home Depot employee that I used to be years ago, their theory used to be, build it and they will come. That's not always true, but in a sense, as you merge your ideas and what we're working on here now with water supply and the existing and the future land use, keep that in mind. Is the master plan going to support keeping the existing commercial? Is it going to support the density? We know just about a month ago, we had a multi-hundred units housing development proposed. Why? Because our ordinance, the way it's written right now, says it can happen, but do we have the infrastructure to support that? Yes or no. It could be argued both ways. They were going to be self-supporting according to their plan. But at the same time, our master plan, our zoning can help us get to where we want to be. But more than that, it can guide the growth to the areas where you want it to go. That's what I try to preach to the master plan, the planning commission. Every day. We have a planner that can help you out with some of these questions too. I know, Ron, all of you seem very familiar with the history of the area and the geology. And I don't know if you know Chris Grobel with Global Environmental Planning, but he's an ex-DEQ employee. I don't want to say he hates him with a passion, but he got out of there real quick. But he has an immense vast knowledge of this area with the geology too that can be helpful. And I'm sure these guys have the background and the people in their company, but I just want to emphasize to the board, thank you for letting me take just a couple minutes of your time and make sure we get all the pieces of the puzzle and that everybody is involved, the stakeholders, and most of all, your constituents, the community out there as a whole is the master planning process, because I think it ties in immensely. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, how far along are you in the 5-year master plan process?
Just starting.
Just started.
Just started. We've got some economic policies and we do have the updated demographics through 2019.
Did any of the study area that we were talking about concern you, or do you think we're looking at?
No, I think you're in the right area. I'm just emphasizing that, you need to engage that planning commission and the master plan and the township board. And I think the township board here, like I say, they have a grasp on what they want to see. And I think coordinating with the planning commission and the community as a whole is a very important part of this process.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I Googled, just FYI, I Googled in 1973, there were hundreds of craters and geysers. The 100 to 150 craters ranged from teacup-sized fissures to sinkholes, measuring up to 25 feet wide and 15 feet deep. That's what happened here.
Mhm. Some of us lived through it.
Don's grandfather's house is right over there. And toilet blew right off the floor. From
Is it really?
Yeah, ruined
says
his well.
all
They had to
kinds
have
of
a new
weird
well
things
put in,
happen.
new septic.
Says it
And-
affected 450 people. They were evacuated and displaced for several months.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that covers the first part of our agenda. We, define the study area that we want to look at. We've identified the 3 options for supply that we want to study, knowing probably, and knowing those potential well field locations, the 2 parcels that we identified that are close to the study area, the 11-acre parcel, the 7-acre parcel of parkland. I think that's good. We've talked about the existing and future land use, population growth, the storage and treatment options. So I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Two items. I wanted to ask, what is your current relation? How does your current relationship with the tribe? What's the status? Would it be possible for someone from the township here to engage in discussions with the tribal government to see if connection to their water system would be an option?
Yeah, and really that's already underway.
Okay.
So Chief and I have had, I believe, about 2 meetings in total. One was just to see if there was even capacity for them. And this discussion did revolve around water and sewer and the number of approximately 250 residential units. Okay. And so the capacity seems to be there. The much more difficult question is administrative. Is it available? And so really the tribe has been quite quiet on this particular topic. But more recently, within the last 45 days, 60 days, I did receive communication from 2 of their members indicating that they've now got their plans established and they know what's available. So hopefully we can pick that process right back up.
Great. And what I would anticipate, if you could come to an agreement with the tribe to purchase water from their system, they would probably have a master meter at your connection, and then they would establish the rate of that water that they would sell to you. You know, it would probably be double maybe what would be paid by, well, I don't think they have the actual customers, but typically that rate could be double or more of what a resident of a particular municipality would pay.
And that's possible. And really, we looked at 2 different versions of what you just asked, I believe. Creating an authority here at Whitewater Township for water and sewer, right? That's one way of handling it. And then we would purchase bulk metered water / sewer, and we would take care of the billing. Then the other thing we looked at is currently how it's being operated is the tribe does all of that administrative billing work. That's probably the most appealing to us. But if it was a sticking point with the tribe, we have the ability through the county, I think, DPW, to bill for this type of service. We've done it before. So that question has not been answered administratively yet.
Okay.
Board, what was your thought? If we could just do it hands off, is that the way we would like to pursue it first? Or look at an authority first? What's your base reaction?
Well, we are one of their paying customers right now over at the fire station. So we get a quarterly water bill from them. But as far as, I mean, if we, I don't know what a township water authority would necessarily do, if they would do all the billing. Certainly, we would have to hire someone to do that if we did it ourselves. We don't have anyone here that would be able to do that.
There's several different options, you know,
Yeah.
how that would have to be determined
Yeah.
down the road a little bit. Is there anything that you're aware of that the tribal systems are in need of? You know, does their water system need more storage? Does it need more capacity? It didn't sound like it. Or is something that you could potentially bring to the table, so to speak, as your financial contribution to this agreement?
That's a
Potential
great
agreement.
question. And I don't think Chief and I looked at it from that perspective. But certainly that's a real eye-opening question right there. And that was
That's
gonna
all I
be my
was
initial
thinking, is more
reaction.
paying customers and we give them fired.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're interested in bulk rate or if they're interested in continuing their administrative work. Because like Cheryl said, they probably have to hire somebody out and maybe that's not working for them these days, right? So it would be interesting to learn on that particular topic. Maybe we can help with administrative billing type things that they can just wash their hands and be a bulk supplier.
One other thing, and then I'll end. From my perspective, I think what we need to do is provide this group just a boundary map that summarizes everything we talked about today, and share that with you and get final comments to make sure that we are targeting that area correctly, and then we can move on from there.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for this portion of the agenda?
I don't have anything.
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, thank you very much. That was very, I think, helpful and productive for us. As Kevin said, we'll kind of start with developing the map of the service area, just make sure everyone's on the same page, just put something on paper. People get a little more excited. So we'll do that and we'll start digging into some of these other things we talked about. You know, looking at some of these properties you own, trying to get well logs, looking at water quality. So we'll start kind of really digging in to the study and we'll kind of go from there. So yeah, thank you very much for this portion. We've got a short break, you know, on the agenda, and then our architect, Dennis Jensen, is going to be leading the building needs portion of this. So he will be the person that's sitting down with you for the individual interviews and documenting and just talking about what you guys want and need for your building facilities. So he's got extensive experience. He's our senior design architect, and he's done a lot of these planning and studies and facility needs type things. And I think he's here. He might be sitting in the parking lot. I will get a hold of him and make sure he's here for the 10:30 a.m. start for that portion. So, thank you.
So Heidi, you and Ron aren't on the list of having your appointment set up. Heidi, are you planning on?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the 10:30,
Okay.
so you get out of here. a few
And
things I
for
gotta
me, I was just going to be in the fire station tour.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, I'm at 12, so if you're not gonna take the next slot after Heidi, maybe I could just move up.
Absolutely.
All right.
However you guys want to work it out. I just,
And I was gonna offer the same to Chief, you know.
Yeah.
He could be called away at a moment's notice.
Yeah,
And so, you know, but whatever, I'm good. I'm
how
flexible.
about he takes my spot then? And
Well,
I'll
that's
take
what
the
I
next
was,
One after Heidi.
that could be, yeah.
these will be individual interviews. So it's, if you guys have
Right.
other stuff you need to do, or you don't all have to be involved in each interview. So,
Yep.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And that brings us to number 2 on the agenda. Currently, there's no information available. Is that correct, Cheryl?
Well, there wasn't, as of a few minutes before the meeting, I could check my email and see if anything has come in. Go ahead.
That's fine. I mean, I'm probably not gonna act on anything without having time to read it.
Right,
So-
but it'd be nice to, they could have told us
no.
we haven't heard anything back, you know, just an update.
I
Yeah,
honestly
she should have
thought they were
somebody's
supposed to
number.
get to us
She
on
said
Monday.
something happens over there.
They did, they let us know that
There's
it was
two
sent,
women
like,
that are running it,
got it,
In Grand.
but
That was on Friday.
that was immediately after our meeting, yeah.
It's
So
kind
they
of-
did let us know that.
It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, there's nothing from them. And there wasn't gonna be, it was just gonna be a vote. But,
Okay,
so there's nothing from them.
so moving to board comments and discussion. Public comment here at the hall. Going once, going twice. So that brings us to Zoom land. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning again, Mr. Supervisor. I did have a few comments. Thank you. I don't know who the gentleman who spoke earlier about the master plan, but I felt very strongly in agreement with him that you have this great opportunity right now with Dr. Grobel to figure out these very complicated planning issues, where the growth is going to be, the type of growth, how you balance it, what it's going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years. It's hard stuff to get my head around, that's for sure. And, you know, in Acme, it was kind of interesting in our community surveys, our community is not very in favor of light industrial or industrial in our township. They don't like it. And I'm just echoing what I read in the survey. You know, I think maybe they're concerned that it displaces ag, displaces rural character, and I can see that. I have some appreciation for industrial myself and the promise of manufacturing to provide jobs and to take raw materials and add value to them. But, you know, sometimes our community has different opinions. And so that's one of those things that I think the master planning process in your community will have to look at as well, of how much industrial is appropriate for your community and what the people want and how much water and sewer they will need. So back to the Acme water study, you know, the costs are staggering, really. The startup costs, the cost to operate and filter and licenses and who's going to do those things. Acme has 3 options for water in the study. We have our own wells. We have 2 wells that provide an assisted living facility. And that was one of our options, to use our existing dual wells. Getting water from East Bay was an option. And tribal water, of course, was another option. And it's all very expensive. And so you may want to look at the Acme report, maybe listen to the recording of that meeting, because the presentation was extremely informative and educational for everyone. It was really well done. I recall looking at some of the numbers, that the pipe, to run pipe, the main, I think it's a 12-inch, was $145 a foot. Hydrants about $5,000. Of course, that's for the minimal stuff. That doesn't include restoration and engineering and whatnot. You know, to connect to tribal water and go 3,300 feet was about $1 million. And so it's expensive. And that's about all I had on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Glenn.
Good morning again, everyone. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the board and thank you to the consulting firm that's there. I would echo Brian's comments that this was extremely informative. I think it's well to see, no pun intended, it's well to see a very focused potential development area. I think this presentation would go a long way, public awareness. People would, many times ask, what about water infrastructure? And I think that this presentation, although there are lots of complexities, I think it's a very focused study, and it was a really, really good meeting in terms of public information this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Denise. Any public comment?
Yes, I would like to agree with the other participants about the information provided in this meeting. My request would be, so many of us attend the Planning Commission meetings as well. If this could be available online, it covers many of the questions that the public has, that they don't have access to the information. And when we look and try to do research, we don't have the professional background that your engineering firm has here, or Robert Hall on the zoning, and all of your questions and were excellent, Ron and Ardella. You bringing up the master plan, which is so important to the community to move forward. We want to move forward with a plan. We don't want to have be shell shocked by or sideswiped by some incoming requests that we have no idea was coming, and we have no idea where it would be commercial or industrial, where it would go, where it would be. And that is something that the public really needs to be included in, is where the plans are for our community. Thank you.
If I could just make a comment, board, out of sync here. This needs study is the first one I've ever gone through. And I don't know how many other board members have gone through a needs study of any type. And while I do hear the need from both Bob and public comment to get the public involved, this was really a very elementary beginning point to even just kind of outline an area of interest that the board could agree on. And so I think, you know, pending the outcome of this 50,000-foot view that we're going to create here with the information we've given and will likely get back, I think that's when we go to the public. You know, it's not like we're going to plan anything. We're really just defining the area. And it would be nice to hear from the Planning Commission about this envelope that we think important. So any comments on that, board? I think we'll include the public as soon as we get to the 20,000 foot.
Right, as soon as
level.
we have some more numbers for
Does that
them,
make
give
sense?
it to them.
Okay. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
No, I'll entertain a motion. So would you like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll second. Oh, you want me to make it? I'll make the motion that we adjourn and continue a non-meeting. a different meeting,
I'll
however you want it.
What are you seconding?
My
we're
meeting,
adjourning.
we're journeying. We're going
Okay,
into more
excellent,
work.
excellent. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Roll call when ready.
Baume,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes,
Gossens.
we'll call it at 10:22 then. Thank you all.